Welcome, everyone, to NJPAC's Virtual Business Partners Roundtable at Home. My name is John Schreiber. I'm the CEO of the Arts Center, and I thank you so much for joining us for the latest in our online series of virtual conversations with the state and the nation's most prominent business executives and thought leaders. I want to thank our Business Partners Committee Chair, Joel Sherman of Atlantic Tomorrow's office, for his help curating the series, and I also express gratitude to our friends at PNC Bank for their many seasons-long sponsorship of these gatherings. Today, we're going to be talking about the hospitality industry, restaurants and hotels, and how that industry has been impacted by the pandemic. If you're like most of us, you probably had to cancel a vacation or a business trip since last spring, and you probably haven't had a restaurant meal indoors for some time. So you know that the landscape is extremely challenging for these businesses. But if anyone knows how they can bounce back, it's our guest this morning. Marcus Samuelsson is an award-winning chef, restaurateur, cookbook author, philanthropist, and food activist. You may have seen him on his public television series, No Passport Required, or during his winning runs on Top Chef Masters or Chopped All-Stars. Here in Newark, Marcus is also known for his wonderful restaurant, Marcus B&P, which is just across the park from NJPAC in the Haynes building. He has many other eateries around the world, including Red Rooster in Harlem and the recently opened Red Rooster Overtown in Miami. His most recent cookbook is The Rise, Black Cooks and the Soul of American Food. Marcus, it's good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me. This is great that you bring in communities from all backgrounds and practices together.
Absolutely. That's what we do for a living. We're also happy to have with us John Tisch, Chairman and CEO of Loews Hotels. John is also co-chairman of the board and a member of the Office of the President of Loews Corporation, a multifaceted organization founded by his family right here in New Jersey. John's grandparents, father, and uncle started the Tisch family's business years ago with a hotel called Laurel and the Pines in Lakewood, New Jersey. John has written 3 best-selling books about leadership, the customer experience, and civic engagement, and hosted the Emmy-nominated TV series Beyond the Boardroom with Jonathan Tisch. And he is a co-owner with his siblings in the Mara family of the New York Giants. He is also a philanthropist who works with a large number of arts and culture nonprofits, and we're proud that John and his wife are supporters of the Arts Center. The Lizzie and Jonathan Tisch stage in the Arts Center's Victoria Theater was, of course, named in honor of their engagement with NJPAC. John, Marcus, thanks for being with us. Just to remind everyone of our timing, this is a 45-minute session, a half-hour moderated Q&A with our panelists, followed by 15 minutes of questions from our audience. If you'd like to ask our panelists a question, you can do so at any time by typing it into the Q&A box. You can find that Q&A box when you hover your cursor at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And I am now fully expressed, and now we can get down to business. So here's a question for both of you, and I would ask Marcus if you would answer it first. Can you give us an overview of the impact that the pandemic has had on your business, both in the earliest days, last March, and then over the last 10, 11 months? What is the current state of your business these days?
Well, I think that the impact is really on several levels, right? Because you cannot take away the emotional side of fear. What's going to happen? This is not similar to anything that we've experienced before, right? So as a small business owner, every day you worry about, are they going to come? How am I going to pay my taxes? Am I going to pay payroll? All of these things is part of just being an entrepreneur, right? But this was something different. And then also hearing mixed information from local government, but also federal government added to that. So that emotional level of what's going to happen to my business, and nobody wanted to bring the pandemic home. So this was you have to think about this from in stages. So that was for me stage one. Then stage two for me was when I realized that we will probably be okay. Our business will be okay. It will not be the same. And I had to make some tough choices. Well, I lost my restaurant in London, for example. I had to lose some stuff outside the US. And those were choices, but also those places have other support system. What we built in Scandinavia to let people furlough people in a structure when you have a huge government support and you know that they're going to get 60 or 7% of the salary feels and is experienced very different than a structure letting somebody be furloughed in a place where the government support was not the same, right? So it was really about dissecting what was important for the core. And then thirdly, starting to see the end of the light through the end of the tunnel. What type of brand have we built? How can we stay engaged with our community? What do they want to hear from us? And this incredible opportunity of rethink. This is an opportunity for both, you know, brands like Jonathan's that has a nationwide brand and a worldwide brand, but also our brand to rethink what are the opportunities. And that can happen on a local level and it can happen on a nationwide level, right? If you're a small business owner in Newark and you own a restaurant, guess what? You can still do cooking classes and connect with that local community. So there are things at every level that we can learn from. But yeah, so it was all of those emotions. And now we're on that side of let's rethink, let's reimagine. And there are many different choices to go in that once you start thinking like that.
So of 100% of your restaurants around the world, what percentage are open for business right now?
Well, I mean, the opening, it's such a big word, right? Because
Right.
in New York, we open for 25%. And so officially we open, but we're not fully open, right? So I would say 50% of our content. But then there's side of our business that are going through the roof, like our book, like the Rise, or the virtual cooking classes.
Right.
So there, it's not, it will, I don't think it will, if you're sitting around and waiting for December 2019,
right,
it ain't gonna happen. It's just not going to happen.
Exactly.
That doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have a business.
Exactly.
You have to
Right.
pivot and realize and reimagine what that is. And that is difficult when you're a small business, but you have to do it.
Yeah, really interesting. We have the same issues in our business, you know, a ticket selling business, a theater business, right? We're never going to be exactly who we were, but we've learned so much along the way. We've been obliged to learn and be creative. John, same question to you. Tell about, please, the early days when the pandemic hit in March and how Lowe's has evolved over the last really almost year now.
Thank you, John. Good morning, everybody. Marcus, great to see you, my friend.
Yeah, good to see you.
Always good to be with you. So, John, I think it's important to reflect back to 2019, one of the best years in the history of the travel and tourism industry. 2020 started very optimistically. January and February were two very good months. We at Lowe's Hotels, and we're a fairly small player when you look at us in terms of the largest names in lodging, the Marriotts, the Hiltons, the Hyatts of the world. We have 27 hotels. We are an owner operator, which is a bit of a different business model, but we were off to a very, very good start. And we were about to open 3 hotels in the course of about 5 weeks. Our hotel in St. Louis, our 8th hotel in Orlando, and an 800-room hotel built from scratch in Kansas City, 65,000 square feet of meeting space attached to the 500,000 square foot convention center in Kansas City. Those were all going to happen within the span of about 5 weeks. We were at our company's national annual meeting at our hotel in Arlington, Texas, the first week in March. And I still have this vision, and maybe it's PTSD, of all of our salespeople and all of our general managers and all of our regional support teams, every 10 minutes getting another email, getting another text saying that this group was canceling. Another group was canceling 300 rooms in Miami, 1,000 rooms in Orlando. And this happened within the span of about 72 hours. So we went from a bit of euphoria because we were excited about 2020 to absolute panic, fear, and worrying about our team members. You have to understand that travel and tourism is one of our country's and the world's most important industries. It is the largest employer in the world. And so when the planes aren't flying and people can't travel and they're locked in their homes, that became an enormous issue for our industry. And more importantly, for the men and women who make a living in our industry. With our 27 hotels, we had to shut 23 of them for a variety of reasons. We left 4 open through March, April, May. And then slowly we started to reopen. The hotels that were brand new are Lowe's, Live by Lowe's in St. Louis, which is a joint venture between Lowe's Hotels and the St. Louis Cardinals, right across the street from Busch Stadium. We opened that on February 27th. We closed it 2 weeks later.
Wow.
Literally closed it 2 weeks later. Our hotel in Orlando, our 8th hotel, which brings us to 9,000 rooms, didn't open fully until right before New Year's. Our hotel in Kansas City was supposed to open April 2nd. It opened June 2nd. And as Marcus was commenting on so eloquently, this is a recalculation. This is a re-envisioning of our business. You have to understand that to keep hotels full, you have really 4 sources of demand. You've got leisure, you've got business travel, you've got group, and you've got international travel. And today, where we sit with our 27 hotels, we still have 4 that are closed. 3 of our 8 hotels in Orlando and our joint venture with Comcast and NBC Universal, 3 of those are still closed. And our Lowe's Regency Hotel, which is obviously very near and dear to many people that are participating this morning on 61st and Park, remains closed, which points to a lot of the challenges that we're facing specifically in New York City. The toughest impact, and I know Marcus feels this because I know how he relates to his team members, is knowing that so many men and women who are so dedicated to our vision as hoteliers, as restaurateurs, that we had to put them on leave of absence, that we had to furlough them, or unfortunately, that we had to separate from them. We have lost, sadly, so many men and women who are no longer part of our organization. We've reduced our headcount. We've cut back on capital expenditures, all to figure out a way to best position our hotels to lose less money, because oftentimes that was the calculation. What do we do to lose less money? And then get ready for the new future. What we're seeing today, a bit of an update with travel, and this is real-time information from this past weekend. Leisure drive business is certainly picking up. So resorts, hotels that are in locations that are in Florida, in Texas, states that are open. Marcus just opened a restaurant in Miami, so he understands this. That business is picking up. People are slowly starting to get back on airplanes. TSA said that there were 4 million departures or 4 million passengers this past weekend. That's the highest number that it's been in months. So leisure travel is allowing hotels to stay open, to sort of get back to some type of normal occupancy. Now, here are the questions. When does business travel return? When does somebody say, oh, I'm going to fly to LA for one meeting and I'm going to stay overnight? I'm going to fly to New York and have a lunch and I'm going to take in Marcus's restaurant and then go to a Broadway show. Unclear. And unclear what business travel is going to look like. Group, unclear. And we've got in Orlando, we've got 2 hotels that are 1,000 rooms each, connected by 250,000 square feet of meeting space. And the meeting space is just sitting there, and all of our friendly competitors have the same challenge. When are CEOs going to be comfortable enough to let their people travel, attend a meeting? When are associations going to hold their gatherings? And we have to remember that associations make their revenue from holding meetings. And associations are so important to our industry and to business in our country. And then the last piece of this, which I don't think anybody can answer, is international travel. When will the borders open? So those are the big questions. And there are questions that are being discussed every day. There are issues that are being looked at. There are ways that we're working with government to stimulate travel. But it's been so tough on our team members. And when we can reopen a hotel and bring back our team members, that is a really good day for us to allow them to do what they have spent their careers at. Remember that our industry hires people oftentimes for their first job, and there is a path to more responsibility. There is a path to becoming a middle manager and then a senior manager. Our industry is really good at that. So I will be happy, Marcus will be happy when we see that people are traveling, the ability that some of the restrictions are lessened, and that we get back to, as Marcus said, it's not going to be where we were, but we will figure out a way to make it work for all of us in the industry.
Thanks for that. I get asked the question a lot because, we operate theaters around here. When will we be, quote unquote, back to normal? And one doesn't know what the definition of normal is, but President Biden, I think last night, said that he believed it would be December of 21, right? Does a date like that feel close to you?
Well,
and then Marcus can comment because he just opened his hotel his restaurant in Miami.
Yeah.
If you're in Florida, you feel like you're normal, and
right,
because the state is open for business. There are no restrictions, and our hotels, we have 9 hotels in Florida. We have 6 of them that are open, and they're doing okay. Not what it was, but they're doing okay.
Right.
At Los Miami Beach Hotel, we've been able to bring back 450 team members.
Right.
Orlando, where we have 5 of 8 hotels that are open, once again, through our partnership with Universal, the theme park will go to 50% capacity. Our hotels will go to 75% capacity because of some of the protocols that we put in place that are still very much working, that we're working with. And so that's okay. Now, if you look at central business district hotels that depend on business travel, that's a problem. And when you look at hotels in New York, the estimate is that 30% of the hotels in New York may never reopen. Certainly Marcus knows the damage that has been done to the restaurant industry with so many men and women losing their life savings and having to lay off their team members. So I hope the president is right. I hope the president is wrong. I hope that it's before December. But there are going to be different scenarios played out in different states and different locales.
Got it. Marcus, let me ask you about the evolution of your business and your industry over the last year. What have you tried? What's changed? What opportunities have you seen? I know how community-minded you are. How have you used the pandemic as an opportunity to more deeply engage with community?
Well, I mean, when you think about community engagement, I think, first of all, I want to thank Jonathan and the Tisch family, the entire family, right, are really some of the biggest philanthropists in the Northeast. And I say that because everyone can do that on different levels, right? Because you have big business, you have middle business, and then you have family businesses, right? And they're impacted by this on very different levels. And I'll say for example, this impacts the communities differently. African-American businesses, because of COVID, 41% of family business have closed. And this is sort of a double whammy, right? Because it's Black and brown communities have been impacted by the pandemic on a higher number in terms of getting the disease and death, right? And then on top of that, when your entrepreneurship and that bloodline in those communities of them being closed by 41%, it impacts the community in a very different place. A place like Newark is going to impact that. Now, I want to look at, for example, another community leader like Don Katz in Newark, for example. Newark Working Kitchen has really kept Newark's family businesses and restaurants alive through work. And we've found several partnerships. We found partnership with World Central Kitchen. We found partnership with celebrities like Michael B. Jordan. We found partnership with federal local government, right? And my point is, as entrepreneurs, as being the hub of the community, we need to look, we have to put Republican and Democrat on the side. When we're in pandemic, it has to just push it aside. It's about how can we collective. So when Don called me, he didn't call it for the election. He called it because as community leaders, what can we do together? Then we reached out to Michael B. Jordan. Then we pushed the local government in Newark. And together we served over 500,000 meals for the first responders in Newark alone. Think about what that does. It creates jobs for the restaurants in Newark, and it obviously serves a great purpose for the people who get the meals. That is the type of community thinking that can actually be implemented in Detroit, in New York, in Atlanta, and the list goes on and on and on. But it really takes entrepreneurship, managerial skills, and working with your community, not thinking about what party or whatever it is. It's like, how do we save our community here? Because otherwise, there is nothing to come back to, right? And I also think that, this will, as the president, he has to give out a very positive sort of image and make us feel, he has to stimulate the economy in a different way. But, the way Jonathan broke it down, that's actually how you want to have to listen there, because it's really a lot of information in those 4 channels, right? For now, we all own a local business. NGPAC is a local business only, and it's okay. We can figure that out. My restaurants are local businesses. Even the Lowe's is a locus / it's a majority of local business for a while. And until those other 3, Europe is not coming back to the Lowe's or to Red Rooster for a long time. This is not 9/11 where the world really sympathized with America and New York, and everyone said, hey, let's go to New York and support New York, right? That's one of the reasons why New York came back as a city. Jonathan knows it much better than me, but in spring of 2002, tourists from all over the world really came back to the city. This is happening across the world, right? So people are not just coming back to New York or to Florida. So if you think about it, you have to first operate like a local business, and then you have to also operate as a virtual business. If you can get those 2, and the virtual revenue stream probably wasn't there or as developed pre the pandemic. So this is actually a vertical that you can build out. On the community engagement, we started a fund called Black Business Matters Matching Fund that we started together with Uber Eats, and we're raising money for it. So that's one thing you can do. You can write a check. But if you can't write a check, everyone has a skill set. If you're a lawyer, volunteer 2 hours a week to that local coffee shop that you love. If you're an accountant, why are these small businesses hurting, right? Because it's not so much of the core skill set. It's all the services that they need to sort of farm out. Taxes are coming up. If you're an accountant, help that local bar that you love with doing their taxes, for example. So there's a new way of, writing a check is important. If you can do that, do that. But if you can't write a check, think if you're a marketing major, if you're a younger person that love that local business, help them set up a social media account and be their social media manager. So all of us in the community have skills, soft and hard skills, that we now have to lend to one another. And I think out of that will come another definition of community. And it will not be December 2019, it will be something else. And it might 4, 5, 6 years after this become a better place.
Thank you for that. John, tell me how the customer experience has transformed in pandemic at your properties. What's different now when one goes to a Lowe's hotel?
I would say that Lowe's Hotels is following the guidelines that have been really thought through and articulated by the American Hotel and Lodging Association and the National Restaurant Association. First and foremost is the safety of our team members and the safety of our guests. That is beginning of the sentence, end of the sentence. So everything that we do is of the mindset, how do we keep everybody safe? H&LA has a variety of guidelines. Some of them obviously come naturally to one's thinking. Temperature tests, the ability to have stands with antiseptics, keeping the room, what we do at Lowe's Hotels, reason that I mentioned earlier that we'll stop at about 75% occupancy. When a guest checks out, we're going to leave that room empty for 24 hours. We have tried to lessen the contact, the human interaction. Now, we're once again a fairly small player, so our IT budgets, our capital budgets as they relate to technology are much smaller than our much larger competitors. But we're all going to keyless entry. We're going to as much individual transactions, dealing with check-in, dealing with paying the bill, ordering room service. And you're really seeing that across the board. The industry has done a very, very good job of understanding the challenges in today's world and coming up with ways that we can tell our team members and that we can tell our guests that we are going to keep them safe. And I think the industry has benefited from that understanding of what the consumer wants today. And we are starting to see in many places, because business is starting to get better, that the consumer is, there is, and I will say this, on the transient side, there is so much pent up demand. When people feel better, when people get vaccinated, when the numbers, God willing, keep heading in the right direction, heading south, there is so much pent up demand that the consumer is going to navigate themselves. They're going to gravitate to where they feel safe, where they feel wanted, and where we as hoteliers, restaurateurs say, we know you've been through a lot. We know you've had a tough year. Thank you. Thank you for bringing your business and your interest in a new experience. Thank you for bringing that to us.
I think you're right. I think there's a tremendous yearning on the part of civilians to go back to doing the things we love to do. At least as far as our business is concerned, we hope that is true. Marcus, we're going to get to questions from our friends in the house in a second, but Marcus, a question for you. In your new book, The Rise, you write that Black food matters. So tell us, how does what we eat and where we eat contribute to the social justice movement?
Yeah. I think that there was so many things that happened during 2020, right? The pandemic was obviously one thing, but that was, we'll never forget, but also the social justice conversation that happened, right? So it transformed our country. It transformed practices around businesses and communities around the world, And I think it's really important to celebrate Black excellence as American excellence. And so many part of our history was not written inclusive with an inclusive sense of history. So when I, as a chef with a big platform, has an opportunity to write a book, it's important for me to first look back and see I stand on the shoulders of so many. I mean, first of all, being Black, but also being an immigrant. So without the civil rights movement and without laws changing, right, I wouldn't be here. So you have to acknowledge the privilege of me coming from a cushy country like Sweden, but being Black and being an immigrant. So what happens in the 60s and the laws changes in the 70s and 80s, I wouldn't have the opportunity to come to this country.
Mhm.
So for me, it's important to acknowledge that, look at who were the leaders that created that, where are we today in the present, and what does the future look like? So looking at Leah Chase and Sylvia Woods and Patrick Clark that they really transformed cooking in this country, and some of them got acknowledged, but not enough. And the importance of rewriting and giving authorship to community really sets up the right memories. If people don't have the right memories, if we don't have the right history around Italy, we would never appreciate pasta. If we don't
Mm.
understand the history around Spain, we don't know what paella is, but we do know these things. So in America, we have 5 cuisines that comes out of the Black community: Southern food, Cajun, Creole, Low Country, and barbecue. If we don't take care of that history right, we cannot not experience our traveling right. We can't go to Charleston with the right set of memories and history. And therefore also the aspirations to go into the industry is not right. So there's an opportunity here in the Rice where we talk about the past, we talk about the present, but we also look at the future. And I think that is, it's been one of the biggest joys of my life actually, to finish the book, travel with the book in, obviously I couldn't travel, so I had to do these virtual tours with it, but really create a conversation that is about inclusivity. And that would not have happened without a year like 2020. I just also want to go back to one other thing that matters a lot. Brand matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all have it, whether it's the Lowe's, the Red Rooster. And what do I mean with that? I'm going to give you a tiny example. It's not big, but if we do this, next weekend, I'm filming in Florida. I'm filming with Guy Fieri.
Mm.
We both staying at the Lowe's. It's not a coincidence. Why? Because throughout the years, we've had incredible, this is what we do in February because it's South Beach Food and Wine. But this time, South Beach Food and Wine is not happening. So we both said, well, we're going to be down there with our cruise. Let's stay at the Lowe's. And I mean, there's a small things, right? But that comes back to brand connectivity. If we wouldn't have a brand experience, we could have stayed anywhere on the beach. But we all said, you know what? Guy, you stay with your crew, I stay with my crew, we'll do it. And so the brand, so even the guy who owns a coffee shop, how you hand over that coffee mug, how you brand that logo matters.
Yes.
It does matter.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yep. So let's go to questions. We got a zillion of them, and we have about 10 minutes or 12, 15 minutes.
So the story of my life.
We could literally go on for hours, if you guys had the time. But we have about 10 or 15 minutes. So my colleague Chelsea Keys is in the back room, and we're going to go one after the other. Chelsea, give me the first, lay out the first question for John, please.
Sure. This pandemic has raised awareness on employee wellness. What measures have you taken to ensure your employees' safety and mental health during this time?
Thank you for the question. It's obviously something that we think about all the time. And the connection of mental health and physical health is one that we try to ask our team members to make all the time. We fully understand the stress that they're under. As Americans, as members of the travel and tourism industry, we know that their kids are being homeschooled, that maybe their spouse or somebody in their family, unfortunately, is unemployed. So we want them to stay healthy physically, but also ask them to find ways to connect and have experiences that will help them stay healthy mentally. Obviously, it's our responsibility when they come to one of our hotels to ensure the safety, and that goes back to some of the protocols and the guidelines that I mentioned a few moments ago. We are nothing without our team members. In normal times, I sit in an office on 61st Street in New York City, in the heart of Manhattan, and I work with the executive leadership team of Lowe's Hotels, the men and women who make decisions, but I'm not checking anybody in. I don't have the talents that Marcus and his colleagues have in cooking. I am not serving cocktails by the pool. I am not making a bed. I am not cleaning up after a meeting. It is the 7,000 team members that are part of our organization who are still connected to us. They're the ones that are doing those jobs. They are the expression of our vision as it relates to hospitality, and not meeting expectations, but hopefully exceeding expectations. And I thank Marcus for talking about brands, because we have a reputation. It goes back to what you said in your introduction, John. My family has been in the hotel business for 75 years. We started in Lakewood, New Jersey. I was born in Atlantic City. And so we've been doing this for a long time. We're in a bunch of different businesses now, but this is how it started, with a summer camp in Lakewood, New Jersey. And then they graduated to a hotel, and then eventually 5 hotels in Atlantic City. And then the rest is quite an amazing story. But from the minute that my grandparents and my mother and father and my aunt and uncle started expressing hospitality and what that means to understanding our team members and our guests, we haven't changed. So those values about keeping everybody safe, keeping everybody healthy, connecting with them even through virtual means, because some sadly are still on furlough or leave of absence, that is really, really important to us. And what's great about our industry is that we have respect for each other. Sadly, our industry and the business world lost a giant yesterday when Arne Sorensen, the CEO of Marriott, passed away after a courageous battle with pancreatic cancer. One of the finest people that I knew. And our industry respects the men and women who lead these organizations because they can connect with their team members. Marriott is the largest lodging company in the world. Arne built it with the Marriott family. Hilton, Hyatt, Accor, you name it. These are incredibly well-run organizations, but it comes down to this question, because we can do nothing without the men and women who are part of our team.
Great, thank you. Question for Marcus.
What advice would you have to someone intrepid enough to enter the restaurant or bar business this year?
Well, I actually think there are lots of opportunities, right? Because, just like Jonathan's families, you've been around in a business for 75 years. You're a reflection of history. And in each one of those difficult years, there's also an opportunity to pivot and come out of it in a different way. So we've actually seen more innovation in our business during 2020 than ever before. So, there are so many different services. You can actually start your brand on a virtual platform today, which you couldn't do before, right? You can connect with customers locally, statewide, even nationwide today, which you couldn't do before. So I would say, really think through what aspect of the business do you want to enter. Think about it as an online business, but with a high touch offline, right? Because if the person doesn't have an emotional experience with your whatever you're selling, whether that's coffee or a donut or a piece of chicken, if there's not an emotional connectivity, your business is not going to cut through. And then if they can't find you online, your business is not going to come through. So you have to have a strong online presence, but you have to be able to have a strong, high emotional connectivity offline. Those are the two things that you have to tweak and focus on. And I do think post this year, slowly there will be a lot of demand, and I think we will enter a very unique time, and I think it will be very positive actually for the hospitality space.
So similar to John, you're saying there's a great yearning to come back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
People can't wait, because we are humans.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I can't wait until, I mean, one of the things, like, Jonathan's door is very open, right? Like, he meets tons of people.
Yeah.
And I love when I like can come up to his office when we talk, and people
Yeah.
like that, right?
Yeah.
It happens. Everything is not like in front of a camera or in a restaurant.
Oh,
but
yeah.
we want to connect, because
Yeah.
in that connectivity, new opportunity starts, right?
Yes,
And that's
for
how you
sure.
grow.
Yeah.
And I think we're doing the best we can through connecting this way, and that will never go away. But we can't wait to see each other as communities, and start new things, and reimagine how we can push forward. That's what we do as American. Nothing could be more American than that.
Yeah, indeed. Let's do, we're sort of at time, but if you guys don't mind, let's do two more questions, one for each of you. Chelsea, what have you got next for John?
So for John, how do you intend to maintain intimacy with your customers and guests as we come out of this pandemic? Does service change forever? What does engagement look like in the future?
It's a wonderful question that we discuss every day. The conversations are about buffets for meetings. Do buffets actually come back? Are we going to have to serve prepackaged meals where there is less interaction? My guess is that we will find a happy medium where people feel safe, they feel protected, but we are able to offer the kind of hospitality and experiences that the lodging industry are known for. When you expand that question out and you think about when does New York reopen, when does New York come back, that's going to be a big part of it. When people feel safe about coming into New York will be back. New York will reopen. Broadway will reopen. NJPAC will reopen. And we're going to make those connections so that safety and protocols are going to be part of the future, but we can never get away from the experience of being at a live show, of eating in one of Marcus's restaurants, of having great food and great service, attending a meeting, traveling to Europe, having Europeans come into our country, hopefully very soon. Those connections will be made. They may look a little different, but this is what we do. This is, as Marcus said, we are human beings. We need to connect because that makes us feel good about ourselves, our families, and our communities. And that will happen.
Thanks. And last question for Marcus, Chelsea.
What are 3 things everyone can do now to support the tourist, restaurant, and hospitality business?
Yeah, I mean, I would say quick as you can, get the shot, right? Vaccine, because that tends.
Have you got a secret way for all of us to get it, Marcus?
Well, I mean, everybody's in different industries,
Yeah.
but I do think that is so key, right? Because I just got my first shot a week ago or so, and even just the level of confidence, like just lining up for it, there was a different step when I walked over there, and I felt privileged, but also was excited about, wow, I see the light through the end of the tunnel. And I want to say this with respect, because everybody can do this at different levels, but even support your local restaurant by ordering takeout, or maybe ordering some swag, like whether that's a baseball hat or whether that is it's supported that way, right? Order takeout, do that, but also volunteer. We all have skills, and I'll say it as a small business owner. And one of the scariest thing is that when you have to pivot, so this is going to require a lot of technology. And if you intimidate and you've been in a business for a while, you might not have that. So one of the things I very often ask mentors that are younger than me, because they know if our content's going to go from Facebook to Snapchat and from Snapchat to TikTok, for example, right? I don't know that stuff, but if that's where part of our audience and our customers engages in, it's our job to figure out how to meet our customer, right? So we can't say, well, we're not doing that. So it's really important to figuring out, staying open to how can you pivot. So I would say, how can you pivot, take the vaccine and support your local businesses in a small or a big way, the best you can, and work as a community together. I'm just going to say one tiny thing. In our restaurants in Miami and Overtown, we planned for 3 years how that restaurant would look like. And in the last 6 months, we planned our patio. It was kind of an afterthought. Guess what? The reason why we are so busy in that restaurant can do it safety is because of that patio. You never know what's going to become the front door. If we wouldn't have had that patio, we couldn't have been open safety, right? So you never know what's going to become the front door. And that is, right now, our indoor restaurant, it looks like a runner station. People are just walking back and forth to the bathroom and running food. But it's the patio that has made that experience. So again, you never know what's going to become the front door. Stay open to new ideas and support your local community.
Great. It sounds like you're saying that business operators need to be jazz musicians. They need to be improvisers, right? They need to be able to be nimble and turn on a dime. So, right, yeah, it gives everybody a chance to be creative in ways that maybe we never would have imagined, right? So, anyway, thank you both. You are, both of you are dear friends of ours, and we're so proud to be associated with you. You are great business operators. You are great entrepreneurs, but as important, you are great humanitarians. And each of you, I know, wakes up every morning and thinks about how to make the world a better place, and that's inspiring. So we are grateful to both of you. And I want to thank everybody out in Zoom land for joining us. I hope that you will join us for our next Business Partners Roundtable, which we are doing in partnership with the Newark Alliance. And it is going to feature Michelle Sikirka, who's President and CEO of the New Jersey Business and Industry Association, Tim Sullivan, who's the CEO of the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, and Jose Lozano, who's President and CEO of Choose New Jersey. And they're going to talk about New Jersey's new business landscape based on all the programs that are now being offered by the governor in the state. This event is on Thursday, February 25th at a new time for us, 5 p.m. So I hope to see you there. You'll hear about it. I'm also going to include in our thank you note to everybody who's joined us this morning information about Newark Working Kitchens and opportunities to contribute to that, because that is transformative for so many of our community members in Newark. Keep an eye on your email for news of our March event, where we'll be joined by Senator Menendez, and we're going to talk about the state's relationship with the new administration in Washington. More details about that event will reach you soon. And until then, stay safe, stay strong, stay well, and Godspeed to everybody. Thank you, John and Marcus. Take good care.
Thank you, John.
It's great.
Marcus, see you, my friend.
See you soon.
Bye.